What's up, crew? Welcome back to Libertalia Game Supply, and we are back for installment number 2 of my return to competitive paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Locals number 2 didn't go well. No, it didn't go well. Now, I think one of my biggest problems is I'm probably never going to get to finish one of these Saturday tournaments just because I got to get to work on time. Otherwise, I can't play at all anymore, right? And so when I go, I'm just accepting that no matter how well or poorly I'm doing, I'm only going to get to stay 3 or 4 rounds anyway, depending on how late we start or how early we start or whatever. This week I was only going to get to stay for 3 rounds. I went 0-2 the first 2 rounds. The third round I got the bye, and I had to cut out of there anyway. So, yeah, 0-2, leaving my overall record at the moment as 2-4. So not great, and you know that would normally be disheartening to people, but I am a Chicago Bears fan, and this is just par for the course for us at this point. So, you know, I'll take it. We'll do better next time. That being said, I do think the build worked out a lot better. I played a lot better. I think there's still some errors in how I built the deck against the particular meta. I'm still learning what a lot of the decks do and like where the choke points are going to be. And so negating the wrong stuff at the wrong time or not negating stuff early enough was probably one of my biggest downfalls here, but we'll cover all that stuff in the recap. So here's the deck list for you. If you got any criticisms, I'm happy to hear it. I think that it is playing a lot better with the F-Zero in the extra deck as opposed to the Armored Xyz stuff, so that was a big improvement. And then I'll recap my matches after the deck list.
Alright, so starting off with the Tellarknight monster lineup, it pretty much didn't change. Triple Lyra, and it's your main target for Caduceus to search the Constellar Tellarknights. The one All-Terran. This may end up having to go to 2. I think as people figure out what this guy does, it becomes a banished target. It got banished early in one of my games, which takes away a lot of having that extra body, having that removal essentially for free. And when it gets banished, there's not really a way to get it back in the deck. And I don't know that it's worth so much finding a way to get it back out of the banished zone versus just playing 2. But 1 was fine outside of that one game where the guy knew how good of a card that was. Double the Neb for the search. Double Altair, this is another big important combo piece. It lets you loop your Deltaros. Deltaros not being once per turn was just blowing people's minds again, just constantly just putting more bodies on board. 3 I think would be too much because it is a once per turn effect, as are all of them. The double Vega to special summon from the hand. The double Anuk to act as a Foolish Burial. This actually works really nice as a starter card. If you open this plus the Constellar Tellarknights, it actually gets you pretty much all the way to your Appaloosa and your F-Zero. Really, there's a lot of different combinations of cards you can open that'll get you to that end board that's pretty powerful. And so the double Anuk was good. The one Sirius, I didn't use its effect at all. It ended up just being an extra body for like combos. Its effect is still going to be useful at certain points. Like if you're in a longer grind game, being able to put your extra deck back together is going to be pretty useful. But a lot of times once you have stuff in the graveyard, it's kind of nice having a lot of it there just so you can keep looping it over and over again. But there's not really a better thing to replace this with, so you could just cut it all together. But I think having the extra effect available for if you open a good enough hand to have that extra extension at the end and just having that extra draw could be good. The Constellar package there, double Caduceus, 1 Sheraton. This is perfect. It works exactly the way it's supposed to. I think I probably misplayed in game 1 of round 1 when I had the Caduceus effect to add back. I grabbed the Twinkle instead of this, and I expected to be able to extend a little bit beyond the board I had, and I got stopped. If I were able to add this back instead, or had I added this back instead, it would have just set me up to be able to summon it, get the other one out of the deck, and then remake the Caduceus. The Twinkle would have been back in the hand off of its own effect by banishing something anyway. So perfect, I like it. I've gone back and forth about wanting this at 3 versus 2. I don't know that it's really necessary, but even opening it is not bad. It's just if you open it without another Constellar, which is very possible. I mean, you do play the Lyrans and the All-Terran as well, and the Caduceus counts. The extra deck Caduceus counts, and I've never had that problem, but I think 3 might be too much for that reason. And then for the extra extenders, we stayed the same. Triple Sakitama, the thing is great. I would never cut that at this point. Double Photon Thrasher, never saw it. And then the 1 Renaud, it's just necessary for that ISO combo. Drawing it sucks, but I just think that ISO combo is so good in this deck that you just gotta play the brick. For the hand traps, we got triple Ash and we've got double Veiler. I think the Veiler might have been a bad building decision. I probably should use this slot to put a board breaker in there just because of how many times I was getting blown out going second, blind going second game one, and just not having an answer for a huge board. So I'm probably going to do that. For our Constellar and Tellarknight spells, triple Constellar Tellarknights, this thing is ridiculous. It's essentially a searchable monster reborn, and then it lets you rank up or down your Constellar and Tellarknight Xyz monsters into any different ranked Constellar and Tellarknight Xyz monsters. So essentially, if you can make Caduceus, you have access to all of your in-archetype extra deck monsters at that point for free. So absolutely busted. I had it at 2 last week. I bumped it up to 3, and I figure worst case scenario, if you're seeing it too often, you would just use this as like a blank card to side out and leave the 2 in there because it's searchable off of a few different things. But even at 3, it wasn't, I didn't feel like I bricked on it or had too many of it at any point. So I probably will leave it at there for next week. The 1 Twinkle because you need it, and then the 1 Sky Bridge. I wouldn't play this at 2. I've seen people playing it at 2 online. It's just, it locks you into Tellarknights, so I'm using it a lot more as a defensive card, or like if I get stopped and I don't have a way to progress without doing it, then the Sky Bridge is really nice there. But more often than not, I'm gonna set this and then make my extra deck monsters, preferably a Tellarknight one, and then I would have a target for this if they try to remove it, and I can put the Altair on board to put the Deltaros on board, and now you have 2 more bodies to kind of like build up a little wall to stall if you need to. And then if the Deltaros dies, you get a 3rd body. Our equipped spells for the Ice Soul combo, the 1 DDR, the 1 Living Fossil. This was great all day. This probably would have been 2. I just didn't see it ever. Even if you draw one of them, the reason I'm playing the 2 is kind of the same reason the Renaud sucks. If you draw one, the combo line is completely dead. So just playing the extra one made it so that that wasn't the case, and they're both good cards on their own. So I would leave both of those in there for sure. And then our one-ofs, the Rhoda, the Call by the Grave, and the Upstart Goblin. The Upstart Goblin was essentially just a blank card for siding, and I liked it fine like that. And then these are pretty self-explanatory in this deck. For the traps, I mained the 1 Stellar Nova Alpha and then triple Imperm just because it's a pretty nice hand trap. The Stellar Nova Alpha, I didn't get to use it. I had a game where I had Summon the Triever to try to bounce the board, and I had this in hand. So the thought was, you know, make the Triever bounce the board and pass with this set and the Triever on board. The Triever has effects when it goes to the graveyard with materials on it. It floats similar to Deltaros, and so you would get the negate off of the Alpha and then the float off of the Triever to probably get an Altair and something else. And it just, my Triever ended up getting banished, I believe, so I didn't get a chance to use it. So I probably will still leave it in there for another week to see how it works out, but in theory, excellent idea at 1. It's also an extra search target for like Lirin, but in practice, I have no results to share. For the extra deck, we got the double Caduceus, your main starter. On summon, it puts a Tellarknight and a Constellar, or one or the other, from the graveyard into your hand. That's a monster spell or trap. And then it also has that effect to copy an effect from your deck. So a lot of times, if you can make this, you can go all the way to your Appaloosa and F-Zero, unless you get stopped at some point, obviously. So excellent card, but I think 2 is fine. 1 Deltaros to loop its effect 100 times. The 1 Triever to bounce the board and rip something out of the hand. The 1 Ptolemaeus. I didn't use this at all. Just didn't really come up. I wasn't playing against anything that I would have had a use for the Constellar Diamond here to negate and whatnot. And so I think that still really good, but it's a lot more situational. If you built the deck to go around the turn skip, obviously you would play another one and probably build the deck a little differently, play the deck a little differently. We've got the 1 Pallades and the 1 M7. M7 is just such a superstar as a way to like make the maximal use out of your Constellar Tellarknights, just by being able to throw it on top of whatever you made, and now you have access to all of your other extra deck monsters, or not, you know, if you don't need it, you don't need it, but such a good card. And if you were to rank up into this with the Constellar Tellarknights, it doesn't have to wait to bounce, so you would be able to, so if you were to like overlay this on top of something with the Constellar Tellarknights, it would get that bounce effect. And it could do it a few times at that point because you're gonna have other materials, so you would be set up for a couple of turns there. And then this right here did damage all day. We've got the Gaga Gaga Magician and then the F-Zeros. And F-Zero is just nasty. I made a mistake in that first game, which I'll talk about in the little recap here, but putting this in Appaloosa on board, I made the mistake of saving this and trying to steal something good, when what I should have done is steal whatever got summoned as the starter, just to take away any type of conditions that would summon something from the hand based on what they controlled on the field. And so that's a player error, but this thing is so good in every deck that I've ever played it in, and I love it so very much, and so it's staying in there. It is 100 times better. I was playing the Armor Xyz stuff last week, and it's just so much better than the Armor Xyz stuff. And then the one Zeus. And for our links, we've got the one I sold because you need it for the combo, the one Unicorn, and the one Appaloosa for all the negates. The Unicorn I never made. There was not really a point where making it would have been better than making something else, but the idea is just that it's non-destruction removal, and that could be useful at some point. And then in the side deck here, we've got the one Alsam again. I had not sided it in because I didn't go to time at any point, but it's essentially your Cowboy for game. You can copy its effect off of the Caduceus to burn for 1,000, and that would be that. I played double Lava Golem, expecting to be able to use it to break a board apart. I think I drew it at some point, but didn't have anything to use it on, and so I never really got to use it. But I'll probably leave it in there for another week to see if that changes. We got triple Nibiru. The times that I sided it in, I never saw it. I'm thinking I'll probably end up main decking this, and if not this, Dark Ruler No More, just so I have a board breaker game one, because I got stuck going second a couple of times, and the deck just doesn't play through a ton of negates all that well. It can play through like 2 or 3. Like I was able to play through some decent stuff, but you just don't have enough gas at a certain point, and it dies way quicker than a meta deck would. The double Droll, I just never sided it in. Didn't really felt like I needed it. I've got one Duster and one Lightning Storm. I just couldn't get a copy of the extra Lightning Storm before the tournament started. I got one after the fact, so I'll throw that in there, and we'll play double Lightning Storm in the side deck. I didn't play against anything that was super back row heavy where I thought these would have been useful, but I think I will end up needing it eventually, so we'll get that changed. The one Crossout Designator, I didn't side, I think I sided it in for one match at some point, but I never saw it. And then the triple Eradicator and the one Batlamius. If you saw the video last week, same deal. You would just side the Batlamius in to be the dark 2500 attack monster for the virus, and then the virus to take away all the back row. I never had a reason to use this because it didn't seem like the spells and traps were like the main soul of any of the decks that I played against, and so it just would have been a waste of spots that would be better used somewhere else. But I'll probably leave this in for a little while longer. I think I do want to fit in evenly matched. I wasn't going to play it for whatever reason. I just didn't feel like it was going to be as good, but there were definitely games where having the evenly matched would have been really, really nice, and so maybe I would take these out for a week to try out the evenly matched and see how I like that.
So round one, I played against Live Twin Unchained. I have not played against Live Twin at all, I don't think. So I wasn't super familiar with what it did. Game one, I was going second. I didn't main deck any sort of a board breaker. The only interrupts I had were hand traps of the effect negation variety, and I didn't really know what I was trying to negate. And so I think that was definitely a deck building mistake on my part, as well as, you just got to learn the matchups. That's kind of part of it. So as I said, game one I was going second. I lost the die roll. He put up a decent board. There was like 3 or 4 interrupts. He had the blue Unchained guy. I think he had the Soul King Yama maybe in the graveyard to trigger those 2 effects. A little bit of back row, the big Live Twin that can like tag itself out for the other 2 in the graveyard and get the pop. So a lot of stuff going on there. And ultimately, I opened fine. I think I had 2, maybe 3 options for how to play through this board, and he just kind of had stops for all of it. Essentially, if the Caduceus gets shut down without being able to search the Constellar Tellarknights with the Lyran effect that it copies, or I don't have another way to get to the Constellar Tellarknights, the turn kind of ends there, and there's not much I can do about it. You could throw the M7 on top, and then you would have the bounce effect, but it's not a quick effect, so it doesn't really make a difference. So it was a pretty uneventful game one on my part. I think I ended up having to pass with a Constellar Caduceus, not the extra deck one, because he took away all the other stuff, and that wasn't going to do anything for me. I think I only had like the Skybridge in hand, which can't target the Constellar Caduceus, and so I didn't even have that option to try to stall for a top deck. And on to game two. Game two, I'm going first. I open fine, and he has no interrupts, so I go all the way through 4 material Appaloosa, and F-Zero on board to pass over to him, and I think I had something in the back row outside of Constellar Tellarknights, maybe Skybridge or something like that. which didn't have any targets, so it didn't matter, but I just figured at the very least it's bluffing. So that means I have 5 negates and a steal off of the F-Zero. I'm feeling really good. I pass a turn, he normal summons one of the main deck live twins, and I negate the effect with the Appaloosa. I think it was a search effect if I'm remembering right. Figuring like, we're just going to try, I have so many negates, you can make a mistake and still have more things that you can try to negate with. So I negated using the Appaloosa, which was a horrible mistake apparently, because the other live twin in hand apparently special summons itself as long as the other one is on the board. So had I used the F-Zero to negate it and steal it, that probably would have ended the turn and I win that game. But because I didn't, he was able to special summon, do some extra deck plays. He had the Triple Tactics talents, so he stole my F-Zero, meaning now I have no negates, because as soon as I try to negate with the Appaloosa, he just steals my F-Zero. So I had no answers, that was it, match was over there. I was pretty disappointed in myself not thinking about just stealing that first monster, because it's probably going to be a starter no matter what. And so I won't make that mistake again. Round 2 I played against the same guy I played against in round 4 last week, who absolutely destroyed me, and it went better. I went 1-2. I went second game 1, first game 2, second game 3, and that game 1 is just killing me every single time because I'm not playing anything to adjust for having to go second unexpectedly. So he was playing a Tellarknight Horus Destiny hero deck of some sort, and apparently his turn 1 hand was quite nice because he built quite a board. It took like 12 minutes for him to get through his whole turn. I was just trying to sit there and keep track of what everything did. I was just trying to figure out how many negates I was going to have to play through because I did open well. Like, I opened like 3 starters plus the Constellar Tellarknights, which frees up your search off of the Caduceus. So it gives me a lot of ways to kind of play through whatever interrupts you have. And even then, it wasn't enough. He had like 10 interrupts, it felt like everything just got shut down over and over and over again. And so that sucked, it's just and so I'm making a change there. I'm going to main deck some stuff so I have answers if I get stuck going second game 1, and if I end up going first and they brick. I don't know, I can't imagine it being a worse scenario having that happen versus having to play through, a 10 interrupt board and just having 3 starters, you lose outright. Game 2 going first, I don't think I had much to side in for this just because I was going first, so I didn't want to side in all my Nibirus and then open them. And so I don't think I really had much of a change to the main deck there. I opened a beautiful hand. I once again went Appaloosa F-Zero. He even drolled me at some point, but this deck doesn't really search to hand all that much. So I think all I lost out on was the Isold search in the middle of making the Appaloosa, and that didn't really matter at all because usually that search is just giving you a follow-up for the next turn anyway, since you can't use that monster that you just searched. So I pass him the turn with Appaloosa F-Zero on board, and this time it worked exceptionally well. He tried to play some stuff. I negated with the Appaloosa again. I know I said I wasn't going to make that mistake twice, but it was because his monsters, he didn't seem to like his hand, and so I figured like the starter probably wasn't the starter he was looking for. He ends up making an SP Little Knight, but he didn't have an extra deck monster, so he didn't get the banish. Worried to have the banish, I was just going to steal it with the F-Zero, and he was playing a real nice Starlight SP Little Knight. I was like, ooh, please, just let me feel what it's like to have one of those on my board for a turn, but he ended up not activating the effect when it was my turn again, because once again, I was just going to steal it. He scooped right there. That was game. Game 3, I sided in all my Nibirus, anything I had that could help me going second, like Feather Duster, all that stuff. Just sided it all in there. I draw my 5-card hand. He's going first. I look at it. Nothing. Not a single hand trap in sight. And so, boys, we are about to get fucked once again. And sure enough, he said he had an awkward hand, but he still put up a decent number of interrupts, and I really didn't have that many starters in there, nor did I have any hand traps, and so I lost pretty quick. And I tried to play it out just to see if I could figure out something. I tried to Triever to bounce the whole board, kind of figuring it was going to get negated, but I had the Stellar Nova Alpha in hand, and so I was just going to set that and pass if the Triever got negated, and then if he tried to activate something, I would at least have the negate on the board plus the Triever float, grab an Altair, and put something else on the board. I didn't have a Deltros in the graveyard to float into, so anything else just to try to last another turn. And lo and behold, he did not get negated. He got bounced, and so I lost my target for Alpha, and that was the end of that. And like I said at the beginning, round 3 I had the bye, which is a bummer because at least at 0-2 you would get a game against somebody else that was not having the greatest day, and so hopefully something could have gone a little bit more my way there. But it's the way it is. I'm trying to find other locals around here that play outside of on Saturdays because, like I said, I'm never going to get to finish a Saturday tournament. So hopefully that'll happen and I'll be able to get a little bit more gameplay going on there. If you guys played it all this weekend, I hope it went well for you, better for you than it went for me. If not, there's always next week. Happy deck building. I'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good one. Goodbye.